It's as almost more important for us to take responsibility, and we don't want to put the responsibility on our consumers.
Companies are impatient. You need every quarter to make a result, and you need to have KPIs that you can follow in the short term.
The durability of a product, you increase willingness to pay, and I think that very much aligns with this long-term thinking.
Hi and welcome to the Next Gen Retail Pod by the Next Gen Retail Hub. We are a few companies sitting here at Mariatorget in Stockholm, or more or less working with big brands and retail. We're very curious about lots of things, and this pod is an arena for us where we can discuss and share and spur the curiosity of ourselves and of others. Today's episode is about sustainability, which is a fantastically interesting and difficult and important topic. It is increasingly difficult and increasingly important, and people, consumers, businesses, and everyone basically want to find a way to be and act more sustainable. It's not only because it's a global challenge for us to be and act more sustainable, but it's also a driver for innovation and continued profitability and growth for companies. And lots of consumers want to act sustainably, but it's not very easy to understand how and why and what and things like that. So there are lots of difficult questions. So it's good that I have some experts here with me, so I don't have to solve all these things by myself. I have Maja Fors. Welcome. You're a researcher at the Stockholm School of Economics, a doctorate student, currently doing research in Belgium.
Exactly.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Matilda Norrman, who is the sustainability manager for the Nordics for Samsung.
Yes, correct.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To both of you. And I know that you share my interest for this topic, so let's see where we will end up. First, I would want you to just share an inspiring company or an inspiring experience in this realm. Let's start with you, Maja.
Yeah, sure. I usually refer to Oatly as a good example, and I got a little bit annoyed by the crisis that they had when BlackRock went in as an investor in Oatly. And a lot of consumers blame them for greenwashing. But I think that the journey that Oatly has put not only Sweden, but a large part of the world towards plant-based dairy products and really push the category to become more sustainable is a really inspiring case. And I think that it's both a case of good products that are more sustainable than a lot of other products out in the market, and they're really driving other actors to become more sustainable, and also like attracting investors that want to invest in sustainable companies that traditionally hasn't done so. So I think that Oatly, in my mind, is a good case at least.
Cool, thanks. And you, Matilda, do you have any inspirational organizations or cases to share?
Exactly. I would rather talk about cases and ways of communicating sustainability. For me, it's super important with transparency and honesty. So for me, companies who want to communicate how they work with sustainability, but in an honest and transparent way, meaning that they can be honest about that. Okay, we had this target, but we didn't reach it, and instead of just like removing the target, for an example. So for me, it's companies who can talk honestly and transparently about their sustainability journey, as we say.
Do you have an example top of mind?
Yes, well, there's one Danish fashion brand actually who has they have their regular social media accounts, but then they also have this account for their factories and labs. So that's, for me, as a sustainability nerd, very interesting to see and read about like what is happening at their labs and factories and so on. And as I said, it's very transparent to actually show the workers and so on.
Yeah, cool, thanks. And Maja, you are doing research on this, and I know that you're looking into consumer responses on the marketing of sustainable initiatives, for example. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. In my research, I look at consumer responses to sustainability initiatives and sustainability marketing. And we know that there are several things that has been shown in research that work. So, for example, highlighting social norms is very effective in increasing sustainable behaviors. But we also know that there are a lot of skepticism and distrust among consumers, and increasingly so. And I think that is a challenge that companies need to deal with. And I think that it's important to have the consumer in mind when pushing sustainability initiatives and really consider what sustainability aspect is important for the consumer in this setting. So research has shown that consumers prioritize among different sustainability aspects. So to really know what our consumers care about when they're thinking about sustainability in this setting.
And you, how did you end up in the position you have and like with the interest that you have in sustainability?
Yes, so I started at Samsung for about 6 years ago. And back then I worked with marketing, but then out of personal interest, I would say, for sustainability, I started in the sustainability team. So it's really a passion and big interest for me to like sustainability.
And for me, it's as I said in the beginning, it's important and difficult, and it's easy to say that something is important and difficult. Yes. But what is the most important thing for us to start behaving and acting together in a more sustainable way, and why is it difficult?
I think there are so many reasons why it's difficult, but if I would try to summarize it in one way from the consumer perspective, it's because our priorities in the current our current lives do not always align with sustainability targets or sustainable behavior. So, for example, we might feel a strong urge to buy a new pair of shoes because they're so pretty and I really feel like buying something or treating myself, but you already have a pair of shoes that are completely fine. And I think that these trade-offs between the long-term goal of sustainability and the short-term personal goals that are often driven by hedonism or a lack of awareness of sustainability in the shopping setting, for example.
Yeah. And for you, then I know that Samsung and that you have high ambitions within this area, as many companies do. But what is the most difficult for you in driving this forward? Yes.
So as Maja also was into, the consumers are getting more and more engaged and informed and about sustainability, and that of course puts, quote, pressure on us to act sustainably and responsibly. So the most difficult thing for us is maybe to be able to communicate our efforts in a way that the consumers understand, but also in a way that the consumers accept it, in a way that they don't think that we are just doing this to be more like for the sake of communicating and marketing, so that we want to be, like, as I said in the beginning, honest and transparent. So we want to communicate our sustainability efforts in a way that the consumers understand, and maybe also in a way that if they want to compare us with other brands, which they often do, I think it's, for instance, also like with all the new legislation coming up on EU level with Green Claims Directive and so on, which I see as a positive thing, that we are finally getting a set of rules, you could say, on how to communicate and how to substantiate like environmental claims and so on. For me, I think at the moment the most difficult is to know how to communicate.
Yeah, because I know that there are a couple of concepts. You have both greenwashing and greenhushing.
Exactly.
Could you just explain?
Yes, exactly. And I think greenwashing is quite a trend word at the moment. I think many people know what it is, but in short, it's a way of communicating environmental efforts and sustainability efforts in a way that makes them look bigger and better than they actually are. And maybe also if a company highlights a small effort and tries to hide everything bad. So that's greenwashing, and greenhushing, I would say, is quite the opposite. That's about not communicating sustainability efforts because maybe the company is afraid of being accused of greenwashing. So greenwashing and greenhushing are that's like different parts of the spectra, and you need to find the balance. Since for me, I think it's important to communicate, but again, not greenwashing.
No, and I guess that it is a bit difficult to find the balance
exactly.
there. When it comes then to I guess responsibilities or what needs to be done, I did a study like a year and a half ago around what drives profitable. That was e-commerce, but basically, what are the true drivers in people's minds to pay a bit more for e-commerce brands, and that can be, I guess, generalized to all kinds of channels. But their sustainability was one of the most important drivers, and the facet of that was that it's not only that the company is sustainable and does sustainable things, but it's a lot also but that the brand or the company helps me as a consumer make sustainable choices. So I think it's really interesting then to talk about a little bit whose responsibility and who can do what. And what's your take on that, Maja?
I think it's really like a system responsibility. So I would say all actors have responsibility. So of course, like companies, but also policymakers have a huge role in this. But I think it's also important that individuals engage in this, both in the way they consume, but also the way they vote, for example. So I think there's really a shared responsibility in these questions.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Yes, but also for me, representing companies, I see it as almost more important for us to take responsibility, and we don't want to put the responsibility on our consumers. On the contrary, we want to give them like tools and develop products that are, for instance, more energy efficient and make life easier for them to be more sustainable.
But how can you do that? Because the product and the production of a product and that's just a slim part anyway of maybe then the environmental and also could be also social effects. So it's the use phase, the recycling and all of that.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And like having features and also like in different ways prolonging the product lifespan. For instance, longer battery life and more durable products and more energy efficient products and so on. But also something that is important that you also mentioned is, of course, what to do with the product when it's no longer can be used. And there we try to offer different services like trade-in programs. And now we have this new Samsung Flex program where it's basically like a leasing or subscription program where the point is to make the lifespan of the products longer by when the consumer has used it for as long as they want, they can give it back to us and we together with our partner refurbish it and give it to the next user. So it's also about mindsets, like instead of having the linear, like you buy a product, you maybe just leave it at home in your drawers, and changing that mindset to instead be more like taking the responsibility of what should happen to the product or device when the user no longer wants to or can use it.
Yeah, no, I spent many years within the H&M group, and there was when we talked about that the most the worst clothes were the ones that were not used.
Exactly.
So they were basically then produced in vain, or someone bought it but didn't use it. So that, of course, prolonging the lifespan then. Okay, if we somehow agree that there's a bit of a joint responsibility, where companies can do a bit more then, and it's there are difficulties in with what drives consumers and their hedonisms and lots of stuff in there. But how do we measure it then? How do we secure that we are moving in the right direction?
I think from a consumer perspective, or like consumer facing measurements or KPIs, I think that an important factor is like long-term measurements, and not expecting to get like a strong result on like a campaign that you run once. And like if we, for example, expect sustainability initiatives or our sustainability work to impact our brand image, I think it's really a long-term effort, and something that cannot be evaluated even like yearly, or maybe it's a 10-year or 15-year effort. And to not think that consumers do not care because we can see it impacting our like brand image in the first few times we try something out.
What do you say, Matilda?
Yeah, I also believe in long-term thinking when it comes to sustainability, and not just having like, I don't know, short campaigns, as you mentioned, and also have long-term goals and targets and so on, and working on a long-term basis.
Yeah, but we're all impatient.
Yes,
Companies are impatient. You need every quarter to make a result, and you need to have KPIs that you can follow in the short term. And also consumers are also impatient. They want new stuff. They want to do new things. How can we then try to have a longer perspective? What's the key to that?
I like because I'm a researcher, there is of course a lot of like
everything takes a lot of time.
But I think also like that it is possible to get people in a more like long-term thinking, and there are tools to get people in a short-term thinking, and that goes both for consumers but within organizations as well. So I think like by I guess rethinking the way we do business. I don't think there's like a quick fix for this, like just do this and then everything will change. It's about changing the way we measure things and change the way we, for example, run campaigns or have promotions. So it's a huge effort, and that's where I think a lot of companies are lacking today.
Yeah, and also like the big picture of how sustainability is becoming more and more or a topic that more and more people and consumers are talking about and are engaging in. So I really think that sustainability isn't a trend. It's something that's like, it has just started, and it's something that everyone has to think about in the future, or preferably now. And that's also when it comes to companies and how we work and business models and so on. I think it's also crucial to have it like sustainability teams can't be like in silos. We have to be like, or sustainability has to be something that all teams are working with or thinking about. And also coming from the top management, that's also important. So that it's not just something nice to have, it's something, it's like a must have.
Exactly, not like a secondary goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I remember a long time ago when I was working with in H&M, and there were goals to fly less garments, and that was of course then, this was 20 years ago or something. It was a little bit of them coming from outside, that we had goals to not fly, but then of course we wanted to sell also, to have things as fast as possible in store. So there was at that time it was not synced, I would say. It's getting better and better, but it's a challenge of course to, as you say, not to have it in silos, and to be that to make sure that the sustainability perspective, both social and climate issues, are integrated then in everything that is done. Okay, then we have to look at the economic situation at the moment. It's a bit tougher, and price is more important when people have less money, and also companies are having tougher times. Then how is then price and sustainability interlinked, and does it have to be more expensive?
I don't think so. I think there are a lot of ways to live cheaper and be more sustainable. For example, like not consuming clothes or these more like hedonic products is very, very cheap. Like if you don't buy it, it won't cost anything. But if we go to these more like need to have products, I think that there are different ways to think about sustainability as a consumer. So you can, for example, go for organic products, which are usually more expensive, but there are also, for example, switching from meat to vegetarian food is also more climate friendly. So I think that being sustainable doesn't necessarily mean to spend more money.
Yeah, and then when it comes to price, I would also say that on a general note, if you invest a lot of money on a product, you will use it longer. Oh, I hope so. So I also think that one way of being more sustainable could be to invest in something that you know will last long, instead of buying many cheap things.
Exactly, and invest in repairing.
Exactly, yeah. And also, again, mindset, trying to come away from the like fast thinking and linear economy and so on, towards more of like longer lifespans and different types of subscription and leasing models and so on.
Now, is that where we're going in the future? Because that, of course, we also have to touch upon where is this heading. But then you look at there are different longer product lifespans and different ways of use and stuff. Is that the key?
Yes, I think so. That's one way. And also like new ways of looking at ownership, and like you don't have to own anything. You can, like, as I said, lease or subscribe or so on. And again, mindsets and ways of looking at ownership and consuming.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then, because we're touching upon it, but let's like the priming a bit of people to think more long term, because I think that's really interesting for us all to then not focus just on what's here and now, but long term. Are there any like strategies or any ways like psychologically that you can prime people to think more long term?
Yeah, definitely. Just like speaking about like willingness to pay, there is research showing that by highlighting the durability of a product, you increase willingness to pay. And I think that very much aligns with this long-term thinking. So, for example, you can get someone to pay more for a product if you say that like you will be able to have it for 10 years. Or like Patagonia, for example, has this repair program. So like if this rips, then we will repair it for you. That also has been shown to increase willingness to pay, to offer these circular services to consumers. So I think that's a very much like marketing focused strategy to offer consumers ways to be more sustainable, as you said.
Cool. So it seems like there are lots of positive possibilities also for the future. And if we try to like summarize then what we've said, I'll give it a go, and then you can fill in. It's a joint responsibility. It is very important both for us, but also I think for the survival of the species and also businesses, because it is to be able to keep on growing and be innovative. You also have to of course move into this area. We need to think long term. There are new ways of challenging the current ownership business models. There are ways to prime people into thinking more long term and to take the long term value into consideration. And it's not a very gloomy place. We have opportunities to move in the right direction and nudge people, I guess, then to take more sustainable decisions. Did I miss things?
Sounds good. That was a good summary, I think.
Yeah,
I agree.
Are we happy with that? So we can keep on working and driving our own little spheres, both academically and then the business world, and me then from, I guess, strategy or insights consultant, or just a curious person and a consumer to be able to drive this going forward also. Thanks a lot for having you. I think this is a fantastically important and interesting topic, and I'm very, very happy to have had a few minutes to discuss it with you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.